Sibling jealousy, a Jungian journey of transformation. The love that shatters is the same that heals, and perhaps the oldest wound of the human soul is the one born in the cradle, when a child discovers they are not unique in their parents' hearts. What would you do if you knew that the silent rage you carry against the one who divided your first territory of affection is, in truth, the key to understanding the darkest labyrinths of your own psyche? This is the crossing I propose. A journey through the murky waters of sibling jealousy, guided by the wisdom of Carl Jung, the Swiss explorer who dared to map the shadowy territories of the human soul. Jung was not merely a revolutionary psychiatrist, but a cartographer of the unconscious, the one who taught us that the monsters dwelling in our depths are not enemies to be destroyed, but lost aspects of ourselves, crying out for recognition and integration. In an era when we seek quick solutions for ancestral pains, Jung invites us to a contrary movement, the courageous dive into the dark waters of the psyche, where lie the most precious treasures of human transformation. His ideas echo with renewed urgency in our time, when social masks multiply on digital screens, but the thirst for authenticity remains like an open wound in the chest of modernity. Jealousy between siblings is not merely an infantile whim that time dilutes. It is one of the first archetypal experiences of human beings, a primitive theater where the fundamental dramas of existence are enacted: the struggle for survival, the fear of abandonment, the rivalry for recognition, the painful discovery that we are separate beings in a world that does not entirely belong to us. When a child sees a sibling born, they are not merely witnessing the arrival of a new family member. They are being expelled from the paradise of exclusive attention, confronted for the first time with the brutal reality that love is not an infinite resource and that their position in the world is not guaranteed. Jung taught us that these first traumas are not biographical accidents, but inevitable encounters with universal patterns of human experience. Sibling jealousy activates what he called archetypes, primordial images that inhabit humanity's collective unconscious. The jealous child is not merely reacting to a particular situation, but responding to an ancestral call, reliving in their small psyche the conflicts that Cain and Abel, the sons of Adam and Eve, enacted in the dawn of human consciousness. The archetype of the rival sibling awakens forces in the child that they do not yet possess language to name. There is the shadow, that dark aspect of personality that Jung identified as the repository of everything we deny in ourselves. The child who once saw themselves as good and loved discovers destructive impulses within, desires to eliminate the rival, fantasies of returning to the previous state of completeness. These impulses haunt them because they contradict the image they had constructed of themselves. Thus is born the first great psychic split, the separation between what they accept in themselves and what they reject, between the persona they present to the world and the shadow they hide in the depths. The persona, that social mask we develop to navigate the world, forms early in the context of fraternal rivalry. The child quickly learns that certain expressions of their nature are unacceptable, that explicit jealousy is punished, that they must demonstrate love for their sibling even when feeling hatred. They then develop sophisticated strategies of dissimulation, becoming the good child who never manifests aggressiveness, or the rebellious child who channels their rage toward other targets. In both cases, an essential part of their truth becomes submerged, creating conditions for future conflicts. The collective unconscious, that reservoir of shared human experiences that Jung revealed to exist beyond individual psyche, resonates powerfully in the experience of sibling jealousy. Each child fighting for parental attention is reliving humanity's fundamental myths: the dispute between siblings for divine favor, competition for limited resources, the desperate search for a unique and irreplaceable place in the cosmos. These are battles that transcend the family sphere and connect the child to the deepest patterns of human existence. But Jung offered us more than a mapping of the psyche's shadowy territories. He showed us the path of individuation, that painful and necessary process through which we become who we really are, integrating all the fragmented aspects of our nature. In the context of sibling jealousy, individuation does not simply mean overcoming rivalry, but understanding its profound meaning and extracting from it the hidden treasures of transformation. The journey of understanding sibling jealousy begins with the courageous recognition of its existence. How many adults still carry, hidden under layers of rationalization and denial, the original wound of fraternal dispute? How many choose partners, professions, life paths still moved by the unconscious need to prove they are worthy of love, unique, special? The first and most difficult task is to admit that this primitive jealousy has not disappeared, but has transformed, assuming more subtle and socially acceptable forms. The shadow of sibling jealousy manifests in adult life in surprising ways. It may appear as excessive competitiveness at work, as difficulty celebrating others' success, as a tendency to sabotage relationships when they threaten our position of exclusivity. It may emerge as compulsive perfectionism, that desperate attempt to conquer a love we believe to be conditional, or as self-sabotage when we unconsciously repeat the role of victim of the original family injustice. Jung taught us that the shadow should not be fought, but recognized and integrated. In the Igasi case of sibling jealousy, this means accepting that the need for exclusive love, rivalry, envy are part of the human condition. We are not pure beings who became corrupted, but complex creatures in which light and shadow dance in perpetual movement. The jealous child we were was not bad, was human. Their destructive impulses arose from a legitimate need for love and security, even if their expressions were inadequate. The anima and animus, those archetypal aspects that Jung identified as contrageneric aspects of the psyche, are also activated in the context of fraternal rivalry. The child may develop crossed identifications with the rival sibling, incorporating aspects of their energy that complement their own nature. The boy, jealous of his sister, may develop greater emotional sensitivity. The girl, rival of her brother, may cultivate assertiveness and competitiveness. These psychic borrowings, when consciously integrated, enrich the personality. When they remain unconscious, they generate confusion and inner conflict. The process of healing sibling jealousy does not happen through denial or forgetting, but through conscious diving into its deep waters. One must revisit the wounded child we were, not to justify our current behaviors, but to understand their unmet needs and offer them what they always sought: recognition, validation, a safe place. In the world, this is one of the most delicate psychic operations, as it requires that we simultaneously become the child who suffers and the adult who embraces. Jung spoke of synchronicity, those moments when external events mirror internal movements of the psyche, as signs that we are on the correct path of individuation. In the process of healing sibling jealousy, synchronicity may manifest through unexpected encounters with figures who awaken old rivalries, situations that place us again in the role of competitors, or opportunities to exercise generosity precisely when we are tempted by envy. These moments are invitations from the unconscious for us to practice new response patterns, consciously integrating what before remained reactive and automatic. The transformation of sibling jealousy into creative force is one of the most beautiful alchemies of individuation. The energy that once directed itself toward the rival's destruction can be redirected toward building our own uniqueness. The need to be unique stops seeking the elimination of the other and begins seeking authentic expression of our individuality. Competitiveness becomes stimulus for personal growth, not for others' diminishment. There is a hidden wisdom in the wound of sibling jealousy that Jung helps us unveil. It teaches us that we are relational beings from birth, that our identity always forms in contrast and complementarity with others. The rival sibling is, paradoxically, our first teacher of otherness, the one who forces us to leave primary narcissism and discover that there are other centers of consciousness in the universe besides our own. This is a painful but fundamental lesson for the development of empathy and compassion. The family, viewed through Jungian lenses, reveals itself as a microcosm of the collective unconscious, where humanity's fundamental archetypal dramas are enacted. Each family member carries a specific psychic function in the system, and the rival sibling often represents what we cannot integrate in ourselves. They may embody our rejected shadow, our undeveloped potentials, our untrodden paths. Understanding this transforms rivalry into an opportunity for self-knowledge. Forgiveness, in the Jungian context, is not a moral act of magnanimity, but a psychological process of liberation. Forgiving the rival sibling means fundamentally forgiving ourselves for having had destructive impulses, for having wished ill upon one we loved, for having been human in our fragility and contradiction. It is accepting that ambivalence is part of the loving experience, that we can simultaneously love and hate, protect and destroy, compete and collaborate. Individuation teaches us that there is no growth without tension, no development without conflict. Sibling jealousy, far from being a defect to be corrected, is a driving force of psychic development. It is through friction with the other that we discover our own contours. It is in rivalry that we test our strength. It is in competition that we learn our limits and possibilities. The task is not to eliminate these forces, but to make them conscious and direct them constructively. Jung showed us that symbols have transformative power because they speak directly to the unconscious, circumventing the resistances of the rational mind. In working with sibling jealousy, it is powerful to use symbols and images that represent the integration of opposites. The alchemical symbol of the Ouroboros, the serpent that devours its own tail, representing the eternal cycle of death, and rebirth, the Chinese symbol of yin-yang, showing how apparently opposite forces are complementary. The image of the tree, whose roots plunge into the earth's darkness while its branches extend toward the light. The Jungian therapist, when working with issues of sibling jealousy, does not seek to eliminate the symptom, but to understand its psychic function. They ask, what aspects of personality are being constellated through this rivalry? What potentials are trying to emerge? What imbalances are being signaled? The symptom is seen as a messenger from the unconscious, bearer of precious information about the ongoing individuation process. Art, literature, myths offer inexhaustible resources for the symbolic understanding of sibling jealousy. The story of Cain and Abel is not merely a biblical account, but a psychological map of the destructive impulses that inhabit fraternal rivalry. The legend of Romulus and Remus reveals how competition between siblings can simultaneously destroy and create civilizations. Fairy tales are filled with rival siblings whose journeys illustrate the possible paths of psychic transformation. In adult life, transformed sibling jealousy manifests as the capacity to admire others' talent without diminishing one's own, to compete with elegance and generosity, to build alliances instead of destructive rivalries. It is the conquest of conscious collaboration, where we recognize that each person has unique gifts and that diversity enriches the whole. It is the wisdom of knowing when to compete and when to cooperate, when to affirm our uniqueness, and when to dissolve into the common good. The work of healing sibling jealousy often passes through a phase of mourning, the painful recognition that we will never be the only child, that the paradise of exclusive attention is lost forever. This mourning is necessary because it liberates the energy that was invested in an impossible fantasy, allowing it to be redirected toward real possibilities. It is accepting that we are one among many, but that this does not diminish our value, merely contextualizes it more realistically. Jung observed that complexes, those clusters of psychic energy charged with emotion, tend to operate autonomously, like secondary personalities within our psyche. The sibling jealousy complex can be particularly powerful, taking control of our reactions in situations that remotely resemble the original family configuration. Recognizing when this complex is active is the first step toward reconquering our freedom of choice in relationships. The spiritual dimension of healing sibling jealousy involves understanding that each soul has a unique purpose in the cosmos, a specific contribution to offer to the whole. We are not here to be better than others, but to be fully ourselves. The rival sibling, in this expanded perspective, is a journey companion, someone who challenges us to discover our own uniqueness in contrast to theirs. They are a mirror in which we see not only our differences, but our shared humanity. Psychological maturity in the context of sibling jealousy manifests as the capacity to celebrate others' success as an expansion of human possibility, to see in another's growth not a threat to our position, but an inspiration for our own development. It is the conquest of an abundance mentality, the understanding that there is sufficient space in the universe for all of us to shine with our unique light. The individuation process, when applied to healing sibling jealousy, reveals itself as a journey of return to wholeness, where fragmented aspects of personality are gradually integrated. The jealous child we denied, the fierce competitor we repressed, the destructive rival we hid. All these partial aspects of our nature need to be recognized and included in the broader synthesis of who we are. Not so, they can be expressed unconsciously, but so their energy can be consciously directed. There is a crucial moment in this journey when we realize that the rival sibling we fought so much externally was, in truth, a projection of aspects of ourselves that we could not accept. What bothered us most about them were precisely the qualities we possessed but denied in ourselves. This revelation is simultaneously humbling and liberating, as it returns to us the power we had given to the other and makes us responsible for our own transformation. Reconciliation with sibling jealousy does not mean we will become perfect siblings devoid of any competitive impulse. It means we will develop more conscious and authentic relationships where rivalry, when present, will be recognized and worked constructively, instead of denied or acted out destructively. It is the conquest of emotional honesty, the courage to admit our less noble impulses without completely identifying with them. Jung taught us that the psyche has a natural tendency toward wholeness, toward completeness. Sibling jealousy, when understood in its compensatory function, reveals itself as one of the mechanisms through which the psyche seeks to balance unilateral aspects of personality. The excessively good child develops aggressive impulses. The very submissive child awakens dominating tendencies. These compensatory movements, initially disturbing, are invitations to integrate a more complete and flexible personality. The true healing of sibling jealousy happens when we manage to transform the energy of rivalry into fuel for our own realization. Instead of fighting against the sibling, we fight for our own authenticity. Instead of trying to diminish them, we strive to expand our own light. Instead of competing for limited resources, we discover the infinite abundance that exists when each one fully expresses their unique gifts. The mandala symbol, which Jung discovered emerging spontaneously in the dreams and drawings of his patients, in the process of individuation, offers a powerful image for the resolution of sibling jealousy. The mandala represents psychic totality, where all opposites find their harmonious place. In the family seen as mandala, each member occupies a specific and necessary position, contributing to the completeness of the whole. The rival sibling ceases to be a threat to our position and becomes an essential element in the family constellation. When we observe our family history through the lenses of Jungian synchronicity, we begin to perceive meaningful patterns that transcend linear causality. The sibling who was born precisely when we needed to learn about sharing, the rival who appeared at the moment when our personality needed to be tested and strengthened, the family dynamic that forced us to develop internal resources we didn't to know we possessed. These are not accidents but movements orchestrated by life's unconscious wisdom. The last and deepest understanding about sibling jealousy emerges when we realize it taught us one of existence's most important lessons, that we are simultaneously unique and common, special and ordinary, irreplaceable and interchangeable. This apparent paradox is, in truth, the key to a balanced life, where we neither inflate ourselves with fantasies of grandeur nor diminish ourselves with feelings of inadequacy. The child who once cried because a sibling occupied their place in their mother's lap grows to discover that there are infinite laps in the universe, infinite forms of love, infinite ways to be unique and loved. Jealousy, which once seemed the most destructive emotion, reveals itself as a portal to the deepest compassion, for it connects us with the universal vulnerability of the human heart that fears not being sufficiently loved. And thus, in the silent alchemy of individuation, the original wound transforms into a source of wisdom. The rival becomes an ally, and the jealous child we carry within us finally finds the home it always sought, not in others' exclusive love, but in the unconditional acceptance of our own infinite complexity.